Hello, hi, I'm Dak. This is my name's Chris. This is my couch, and I talk about books and various other things. We're talking about books. Um, I haven't been reading a lot the last 2 weeks. I've started my Glass and Gardens Solar Punk Summer. It's like a bunch of short stories. I started that. It's been good. I've been slowly reading through that. I haven't even touched any of my library books. It's been a very long 2 weeks. My partner ended up getting sick, and we had to go to the hospital, and he's on, medication. And then I took my cat to the vet, and then the next day, he had an allergic reaction to not the next day, that night, he had an allergic reaction to the vaccine, and he went back to the vet yesterday. It's been a wild ride. The last 2 weeks have been a little rough, a little overwhelming, so I have not spent a lot of time reading because I've spent a lot of time stressing out. So I've compiled today, in my lack of reading, some book recommendations that I think you guys will like. This is my book recommendation video. This is not gonna be like... I don't want to say like every other book recommendation video. I don't get sponsored by any of these books, authors. I don't get sent any content. This is just book recommendations I think people should look into and I think would like. I have some variety here, from short stories to regular novels to horror to some comics to some graphic novels to a manga I think you guys would like. I read kind of all over the board. And so I can't say I've read a ton of popular books. There is a book in here that I think is relatively popular. I've seen it on the book spaces. So I did put this in here because I thought it was really good. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. For my romance people that enjoy a good romance with a little bit of spice in it, this is probably a book some of you have seen before, but this is Paige LeBeau, I believe. I'm in love with Mothman. My husband and me, when I first found this book at Barnes & Noble, I laughed, walked away from it, my husband chuckled about it, and then we went back and bought book 1, and I was like, okay, this is funny. I read it, this was really fun. This was a very fun book. There is some spice in this, just a heads up. There's some very adult themes here. This was it was really good. You're in it feels very modern, as in the girl's very much using social media, is a social media influencer and is burnt out of it, and then just takes her social media money and runs off and buys a cottage in the woods. A lot of us joke about doing that consistently, and this girl does it, and it's the funniest shit. And then Mothman is introduced in the funniest way I think imaginable. And so this is a really great read. I think it's paced really well. There is 2 other books in this trilogy. There is I'm in Love with Mothman, which is book 1. I'm Engaged to Mothman, which is book 2, which is equally hilarious. There's different types of struggles and stuff with that. And then I'm Married to Mothman. And I think the struggles in 2 and 3 work a lot better. And I did like that they switched it up in the 3rd book, and they do dual perspectives. Most of the time, this is only in the main female character's perspective. And then in book 3, you get Mothman's perspective and her perspective. And I thought that was a good addition to finalize out the trilogy. So, highly recommend this book. I think it's hilarious. I think it's fun. And there's good stakes in it. Small spoiler. There's a little cryptid hunter, and it comes into play, and it's quite comedic. Next up, to no one's surprise, I have Monk and Robot by Becky Chambers. I recently purchased this book. I'm very excited to reread this book. This is the contender for my all-time new favorite book, which my favorite book for my whole life has been the 2nd book in the series of unfortunate events, The Reptile Room, because I just love the descriptions of Monty's reptile room. This is the new contender. I have yet to reread this because I'm in the middle of some other stuff. I read this the first time, and I didn't stop thinking about it after, and that's how I slowly developed into realizing that I think this is my new favorite book. Becky Chambers does a really interesting job on depicting how a utopian world would work when we prioritize renewable energy. This also takes place in a monk society. And so there's a lot of just really heavy solar punk themes. This is definitely more of a cozy self-discovery kind of book. I wouldn't say there's like a ton of action or anything in this. This is a lot of trying to find yourself, trying to understand, you know, your being, your work ethic, and then also getting just thrown into the pile of finding a robot again for the first time in forever. This is a very fun read. This is technically 2 different novellas. This is the book version of both of those novellas put together. So if you wanted to read these separately to make it seem a little less daunting, if you're someone who's like, I don't know, bigger books are a little scary, totally understand that. I was that way when I started reading. I still am sometimes. I tend to lean for the books that are shorter on my shelf. Because sometimes I'm just like, man, 500 pages, Jesus. I get it. I totally do. Anyways, this is a very fun, book to read. I do recommend this. This does have a non-binary character as the main character, and I think they do it very, very well. Let me throw that around. Ooh, I got this one for Christmas. This one was crazy. My friend bought this one for me, and I didn't know if I was gonna like it, but if you're into short stories, but kind of haunted, semi-horror tales, I would say more haunting tales. It's not really like a shivering in my boots kind of thing. But I have The Midnight Timetable by Bora Chung. This is a translated fiction about different objects and their ghost stories and how they all kind of connect in this interesting way towards the tail end. A lot of this is taking place from the new security guard, and then you get the tidbits from the different items. And that's all I'm gonna say, because this does all connect in the end. And I thought this was incredibly well done. I mean, it's been translated. It's, this is, almost won many book awards. Bora Chung is a well-renowned, author that has multiple translated books. And this is, I think, a great introduction to it. This was my first book by her, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. I devoured this book in, like, a week. And it was really, really fun. And it's, like I said, it's short story based, so, like, you don't have to, like, sit and read through it. You can, like, read 1 chapter, 2 chapters, and be like, okay, cool, and put it down without feeling obligated to keep continuing to know what's going on if you're someone that's just more into short stories. And then it just eventually all connects and creates this really great picture of something I don't think I would have ever thought of. So props to this author. It was amazing. If you're more into, like, horror or suspense kind of stuff, I found that one of my favorite authors is T. Kingfisher. I really enjoy her horror writing specifically. I know that she does fantasy and romance writing as well. I found more personal enjoyment in her horror. And I have, again, a short trilogy for those that are not super interested in, like, longer books. I have What Moves the Dead, and then you have What Feasts at Night and What Stalks the Deep. These also can be read all out of order in technicality. You don't have to read them in order. It makes a little more sense reading them in order because they occasionally refer back to other things. This also has a non-binary character as the main character. This is considered the Sworn Soldier series, and I'm really, really hoping that T. Kingfisher continues to write in this series because I am in love with the characters. The suspense, the layout, the setup just to get to the horror part is just amazing, immaculate. I think the build-up is just enough, and then the ball drops, and then sometimes it's this kind of disgusting, you kind of realize, and then you see all of the foreshadowing, and you went, oh my god, how did I miss that? Ugh. This book had that, and I was like, I can't believe this. The second book, What Feasts at Night, I thought did a good job, but personally, it was not my favorite. What Stalks the Deep gave it a little more of a twist where the evil being maybe wasn't also evil, but there was an evil element. This trilogy is really, really amazing, and I'm hoping that this trilogy turns into more than a trilogy. If you're interested in other horror books by her, I specifically enjoyed The Hollow Places. If you're gonna go more towards her horror stuff, I have it. I didn't pull it down. The Twisted Ones I thought was okay, but it is like a play on another book, and I hadn't read the other book, and a friend of mine read the original that the Twisted Ones was based off of first, and then went into the Twisted Ones, and she said that it's a lot easier to understand if you read the original text. And so that was my mistake. That is something I'm considering also rereading. But The Hollow Places, there's a scene in that book that every time I describe it, I start tearing up. I have no idea why. It scared the shit out of me when I read it the first time. And I haven't touched that book since, because like it lives, the one scene lives rent-free in my head. It's crazy. If you're more into graphic novels, this is Garlic and Vampire by Bree Paulson. This is a really fun and creative graphic novel about a bunch of veggie characters that are alive, and their little witch who lives in the house, and then the vampire up on the hill, and the adventure that unfolds into that. And this was really fun. This was actually my husband's pick a while back when we were at a bookstore. He picked this one out. We've both read it. We've both absolutely enjoyed this and had a good laugh about it. This is just a really great short graphic novel. The artwork is very fun. Let me find a good depiction of the art. This is good without any spoilers here. This is some of the artwork and the character designs, and I just thought it was amazing. This is one we picked up at Powell's. And honestly, I've reread this twice because it's just a really, really fun book to read. If you're more into mangas, first of all, I'm going to recommend you Soul Eater, because that was my first ever manga and anime I ever watched. And obviously my favorite one because of that. But if I don't have any of those books, I don't own them. I borrowed them from my neighbor for the longest time. But I do own book 9 and 10 of The Masterful Cat is Depressed Again Today. I found these originally at the library, and they didn't have book 9 and 10, and so I ended up purchasing book 9 and 10, and the goal was actually to donate book 9 and 10 to the library, because I had assumed other people were also reading the series, and then my husband still hasn't read book 9 and 10, even though we'd both been reading the series. And so now I just have these two books, and now I'm probably gonna just get the whole series because it's very fun, and I do want to reread it because it's just quirky and funny to me. This is very, like, Cat is more of the adult of the house, and Girl is just goes to work and supplies the money. And it's a really interesting and very funny dynamic, and then you get introduced to new characters that start unfolding the story where the cat starts getting more of a personality. And I think this is a great read. It's very, like, there's no stakes here. There's really no stakes. So if you're more into regular comics, I don't know if it's considered a comic or a graphic novel, to be completely honest. We're gonna go comic for now, but it might be graphic novel. I have Sarah Gailey's Eat the Rich. I picked this up from the library. I felt like the ending was a little blunt. Like, it ended very abruptly, but overall, I thought this comic was really good. I went into this knowing absolutely nothing, and then I went and started reading it and realized it was entirely not what I was expecting. Because based off the title, I was like, we're gonna eat rich people. That is not the case. I'm not going to say any more about this because I highly recommend going into this book completely blind. The only thing I'll tell you is there is some sapphic relationships in this, so maybe if that piques your interest. They are a very cute couple. Anyways, this one's good. Last but not least, if you are just more into short stories, that's it. You just like short stories, and maybe you like apocalypse, dystopian, after the bombs, whatever. I went through a phase where I was very heavily into, like, apocalyptic stories, and I had come across this at Powell's a long time ago for, like, $10. Do not be alarmed by the size of this book. It is a bunch of short stories. It's a big book. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a thickum. But this is Wastelands, the New Apocalypse. There is a bunch of authors featured in this compilation of short stories. I read all of this. There are some that are gross. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. There are some that are amazing, immaculate writing, and I was staring at the end page going, where's the rest? I want the rest. There was one I distinctly remember being incredibly disgusting and very sexually graphic in a very gross way. And then there's a couple that do discuss, like, child death, infant death, stuff like that, because it's like zombie apocalypse style. And then a bunch of them are just amazing. Some of them are really great. But unfortunately, you get a bunch of really great writing, and then you also get some gross writing, some writing that's going to be maybe not completely up your alley. I do still recommend the compilation of short stories, though, because overall, most of these short stories are incredibly well done. But there are a few in these collections that are not it or are just overly gross. But if you're pretty safe on dealing with that kind of stuff, I do recommend this. There is actually 3 short story collections. There is this one, and I own the other 2 as well. Apparently this is the 3rd rendition, and I just happened to found it, and I actually found the other 2, which is like Wasteland Apocalyptic Stories, and then Wastelands 2, and then there's Wastelands The New Apocalypse. So I have not read the other 2 compilations of stories. I did read this one through and through and had a really good time with it outside of the few offshots which you're going to get with any short story book. So if you're interested in apocalyptic stuff and you want somewhere to start or just a place to find new authors, I highly recommend this. This is a really great start to that. If you are just looking for short stories or new authors in general, I do recommend the Glass and Garden Solarpunk Winters and Solarpunk Summers series as well, because it's just, you want new authors to find, that's a great way to find it, is just anthologies of short stories. Highly recommend it. Like I said, I'm currently in the Solarpunk Summers. I've read the Solarpunk Winters, and that one was very good. There's a lot of unique, good depictions of what that could look like. And it's not all just like, this is the science behind it. Some of it's just like the world building, or even just the politics, or just one small aspect about it. It's not even the main focus all the time, but it's just, how well is this person at world building, coming up with new ideas, stuff like that. I think it's a great introduction to new authors, to be completely honest. I found quite a few authors that I've gone and looked for because of short stories. So that's it. That's what I have today. I gotta give my cat medicine and pull him out from the bed, because that's where he's at right now. So hopefully I have some decent book recommendations for you. Let me know, what are some of your guys' book recommendations that you think the people should know more about? Tell me about it in the comments. That's all I have. Why are you still here? Get out of here!